Hey, and welcome to Board with Life News for October 12th. Today I'm going to talk about Siege of the Citadel, Train Heist, expansions for Once Upon a Time and Thunderbirds, as well as the Kickstarter for Laser Riders. Let's get to it. Hey, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board with Life News. It was an exceptionally slow news week because of Essen that is going on as I speak right now, and will be dominating the board game world for the next couple days. I imagine next week we'll have a bunch of big announcements that come out of Essen, so until then we kind of got little slim pickings, but I still got some news. I started a Patreon a couple weeks ago, and I would love if you would support me if what I do here is valuable in your life. It'd be cool if you could throw me $1 or so or something like that. I will link the page here, and there's a bunch of different reward levels and stuff that you can go look at if you are interested, and I very much appreciate that. All right, on to the board game news. Siege of the Citadel is a game from Modifius Entertainment that was kickstarted very recently for over $600,000. It's designed by Richard Borg with help from Eric Lang and Kevin Wilson, so obviously a very well-established group of designers there. And interestingly, Fantasy Flight Games has picked it up to help with distribution and localization, so it seems like Modifius Entertainment is going to make the game and handle the Kickstarter stuff, but then the distribution is going to be handled by Fantasy Flight Games. So this is kind of an interesting move for Fantasy Flight to like sort of halfway get into the Kickstarter realm with this. I don't know if it was kind of planned beforehand or not. That's yet to be seen. It also seems like Fantasy Flight might be sort of filling out their slate a little bit now that they have lost the Games Workshop license. So interesting to see there, and we'll see if this is more common with kind of large established publishers picking up successful Kickstarter games to help with distribution. Train Heist is a game that was successfully kickstarted in 2015 from Tower Guard Games, and this game is getting picked up by Cryptozoic for them to help with distribution. So this is certainly not the first time, obviously, and Fantasy Flight Games in the previous story obviously did it. There are partnerships between companies where one company will kickstart and another company will handle distribution. That's not super uncommon, but we're certainly seeing it more and more now that games that have had successful Kickstarters but then maybe have trouble getting their second print run out there, another company will pick up the distribution rights. Train Heist is a cooperative game for 2 to 4 players where people take on the roles of kind of cowboys that are trying to stop a corrupt sheriff from stealing all the townspeople's money. It was pretty well received last year, so it makes sense that somebody would be interested in increasing its distribution. Once Upon a Time is getting an expansion. Once Upon a Time is a storytelling card game where you have cards that have different story elements on them, where it'll be a princess or a tower or things like that, and you have to tell a story by playing the cards, but people can take the story from you, but you have to pick up where they left off, so you end up with this really funny, weird, convoluted story by the end of it. It's a very fun game. This expansion is called Fairy Tales. It's going to have 55 new cards, including things like Fairy Dust, an Elf, or Never Grows Old. So if you are a big fan of storytelling games or Once Upon a Time, I'm sure this is exciting to you. This should be out later this month. Thunderbirds is a cooperative game designed by Matt Leacock that sort of got overshadowed because it came out shortly before Pandemic Legacy, so I think Matt Leacock blew up in a huge way. I don't know anybody that's playing Thunderbirds. Clearly there are people that keep releasing expansions. I'm not saying it's a bad game, it's just I don't really hear about it much. This expansion is called Thunderbirds The Hood. The Hood was the main villain in the TV show from the 60s, I believe. And interestingly, this expansion will make it so you can play as the Hood, the villain. So instead of what is normally a cooperative game, now this would be a one versus the group game, where one person gets to play as the villain, everybody plays against them. So that seems like an interesting adjustment to the game. This should be out in November. This week's Kickstarter is for Laser Riders. This is a racing game that takes place in sort of like an 80s Saturday morning cartoon world meets Tron, where you're racing, and like Tron, you like leave a pathway that can't be crossed. And there's all sorts of really fun, silly characters that are very inspired by like 80s cartoons. Has really good artwork. The theming is just absolutely lights out on this game. It also has some of the best packaging of a game I've seen this year, where each different rider, each different, player character comes in its own little like VHS looking box that all fit into a slipcase that looks like a collectible VHS box. So really good art design on that. It is $29 right now on Kickstarter, so if that sounds interesting to you, go back that. That's the news for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you follow me on social media. I'm at Chris Bryan Games on Twitter and Instagram. Also, make sure you check out my video from last week. I did my top 10 most anticipated Essen releases, so you can see what I'm excited about that's coming out at Essen right now. So make sure you check that out. Also, if you want, go check out my Patreon. I actually have a special bonus video on the Patreon page that is totally free. It's just on the front page. You don't have to back to see it or anything like that. But it is my three most intriguing games coming out at Essen 2016. So you can get a little bit more video content there if you're into that. So thank you so much for even taking the time to look at it. This week's question comes from @Chromuses, I don't know, via Twitter, and they ask, what can FLGS's, friendly local game stores, do to help draw in customers that would normally just buy their games online? How can publishers assist? I think the main thing local game stores can do is just being a friendly hub, having a really knowledgeable staff that can recommend games if somebody likes a certain game, things like that. Having open gaming space so people can come and play games there, and having a small game library so people can try out new games. I think that's all good. My favorite gaming stores in my area have kind of like loyalty programs where if you buy 10 games, you get your 11th game free, things like that. Certainly having sales. My local game stores will have, on like Tabletop Day and things like that, buy two, get one free sales, which I know isn't practical for a lot of game stores because that's a huge discount, but that certainly brings people in that otherwise wouldn't be coming into the game store, and then that might be your opportunity then to get them involved in the loyalty program, to get to know the knowledgeable staff, things of that nature. Also, let me say, I have no affiliation with game stores, and I haven't worked there, so I really don't know the business side of it at all, so I might be saying impractical stuff. How can publishers assist? I think publishers giving kind of early access to their games if you buy them from a local game store, or exclusive promo items, where that's becoming more common, where if you buy it at a game store, you get like a little, 2 extra cards or something that's really inexpensive, but a way to kind of promote that. I know Renegade Games is doing an interesting thing this holiday season where if game stores buy a certain amount of their merchandise, you can get like if you buy one of their games or like $30 worth of their games or something from a game store, you can get a like promo box that has promos for a bunch of their different games in it. So giving game stores exclusive items, I think helps a lot. I think that's better in a lot of ways than what some companies do, where they set, like that MSRPs have to be more expensive, or the MSRP has to be followed online, or there can only be so much discount, or this thing where you have to be an online store or brick and mortar store. I think that's just complicated and it's not good for the consumer. But I think offering incentives and having, in-store events and things like that really add a lot to the experience that game stores can provide. So that's that. All right, thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.